Overwhelmed was searched for 14 and a half times more last month than it was just 20 years ago. And is it surprising? More information was created in the last 2 years than all of human history combined. In fact, 500 years ago, a highly educated person consumed as much information in their entire lives as we do about every 2 days. But information is only the beginning. The average person today has more luxuries than royalty did just 200 years ago. So we are more comfortable than we've ever been, and yet we seem to be struggling more than ever. Our world is not going to slow down, and so if we're waiting for it to, we'll be waiting until we're dead. So it begs the question, what are we doing wrong? And how do we get rid of feelings of overwhelm, stress, and suffering in such a chaotic world? When your ancestors first saw a tiger coming around the corner, everything changed. This part of their brain, called the hypothalamus, rang the alarm within their body. Their heart began beating faster, their blood pressure rose, blood sugar increased, and they got a surge of energy. However, this came at a cost. They didn't just generate this energy out of nowhere. The chemicals of stress suppressed their immune, digestive, and reproductive system, as well as other growth processes, to allow them to do one thing: survive. In other words, their body stole energy from healthy processes to help them escape a short-term threat. After all, digesting a meal is useless if you're dead. But after that danger was averted, your ancestors' stress levels slowly returned to baseline. But for many of us, we remain in this heightened, deprived state for a dangerous amount of time. Stress itself is good, but chronic, prolonged stress is killing us. In fact, medical research estimates that 90% of all physical illnesses are stress-related. So whether it's a tiger, paying bills, or worrying about our future, the stress response in our bodies is the same. And mentally, we all know the feeling. We're the only species we know of capable of creating stress through our own thoughts. So we don't need reality anymore to make us feel bad. So the secret to mastery over stress and overwhelm starts here. Let's say we put 2 people on a train. One of them could be happy, but the other could be shaking in fear. Yet the actual event is identical. Now we all know this, but what if we take this idea to its breaking point? Let's say we wiped both of their memories of every past experience of trains. When they get on the train now, would they still react in the same way? Probably not. But why is this important? Because it means our experience of reality is coloured by our memory, which means we don't see the world as it actually is. We see it as we are. So if our memory is filled with anxiety and stress, how do you think we're going to see the world around us? And if we're seeing the world through this filter, could that affect how stressful our future will be? If you make decisions to study something every single day for a decade, you'll probably be really good at it. So most outcomes in life start with our decisions. However, what's the biggest thing we use to make those decisions? We reference our memory of the past. This means that our memory isn't just a glorified storage device, it directly affects our future. So if we've had a stressful past and just keep living without any intervention or changes, what do you think that means for our future? However, this is only the first piece of the puzzle. We can perceive of the past, present, and future inside our heads. However, the only time that actually exists is now. Every memory of the past or imagination of the future exists exclusively in your mind. Now, this might sound stupid because we know that the past happened and the future's going to happen, so it must exist. But let's say you build a time machine and you go back to any day in the past. You may say you're in the past, but from your perspective, you're experiencing each moment as the present moment. So why is this relevant to stress? Because if you're spending all your time thinking about the past or hallucinating the future, by definition you're not in touch with reality, because you're compulsively thinking about something that isn't happening outside of your head. Famous philosopher Plato said to imagine 4 prisoners chained up in a cave facing a wall. They all look at the wall in front of them, only able to see the shadows of objects behind them. To them, the shadows are reality, because they're unaware of the world outside. Plato used this to symbolize how we can be fooled into a world of illusions, and in this case, a world of mental noise. It's estimated we can think up to 70,000 thoughts every day, and assuming we're awake for 16 hours, that's 4,375 thoughts an hour. So we can see how easy it is to get swooped up and dragged away from experiencing reality as it truly is each moment. And if that stream of thoughts is negative, stressful, and overwhelming, our lives can quickly become filled with those emotions indefinitely. But before we talk about solutions, there is one more major problem that our modern world exposes us to that damages this cycle further. Today, our information-packed world is like heroin for our minds. It's addictive and destructive in equal proportions. Whilst there are many sources of information, there is one that illustrates this problem more than any other: social media. We all know the feeling. After a binge of content, a horrible blend of overwhelm, tiredness, our brains feeling fried and almost numb. However, this feeling just masks a deeper problem. When we're exposed to huge influxes of information, our brain's processing becomes overloaded. And as your brain adapts to processing more information, its ability to distinguish good quality new information from bad quality depletes rapidly. So this means that new information, whether that's a piece of content telling you the moon is actually a pancake, or whether it's just another one of your thoughts, if you can't distinguish truth from fiction or reality from thought, the lines between them blur. So your inner world of constant fictional chatter becomes louder, and the outside, real world becomes quieter. In short, too much information can keep us stuck in our own mental world. And if we're being fed information about things that aren't true, aren't properly researched, or are just complete lies, we could be building our beliefs, opinions, and therefore decisions and outcomes in life based on things that just aren't true, all because our brains couldn't keep up. And it's not just social media. It's so many things in our fast-paced world, from news to video games. So does this mean we have to stop consuming social media and other information forever? No. It means that without understanding its effects on us, it will continue to drag us down. And as Carl Jung said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. So how do we break the chains of our minds, find peace in a stressful world, and build ourselves out of truth rather than fiction? In our 13.8 billion year old universe, the probability of you existing is 1 in this number, which is 10 with 2.685 million zeros behind it. And of all the ages to be born, we find ourselves in this one, where we know more about the universe and ourselves than ever before, and yet we find ourselves chronically stressed, overwhelmed, and worried. But knowing this fact, whilst inspiring, isn't quite enough to solve this problem. If I experience a painful event, but then replay that event in my mind every day for a decade, I'm suffering my memory, not reality. And that memory, while starting as a real event, is now made up exclusively of concepts. And we've been indoctrinated into a world that puts concepts above all else. For example, school evaluates children based on their ability to recall and evaluate concepts within a predefined framework. This feeds the idea that success is related to some sort of conceptual mastery, where when we just have the perfect organization of concepts, we will be some sort of omnipotent super being. However, concepts are limited, because they're just symbols of reality itself, and if you think to a time when you were so convinced you were right, only to later find out you couldn't have been more wrong, you'll see that they're extremely fragile too. So we can say that our pattern of experience is like this. We have reality, or the base experience, and then on top of it we have the memory filtered experience. For example, if I get on an aeroplane, that's the experience. However, if I'm terrified of planes and so I start panicking, then that's my memory filtered experience. So the first logical solution many draw from this is to build a more positive mindset with traits like discipline, focus, and strength. And whilst this is a great start and helps us to achieve many things, from a personal well-being standpoint, it falls short. Because in nature, after a threat has passed, the stress response returns to baseline. But when we find ourselves chronically stressed or overreacting to ordinary life events, it signals an over-reliance on concepts and therefore a detachment from reality. This detachment leads to feelings like we're being emotionally dragged around, almost at random depending on what the next thought is. We feel worried about the future or depressed about the past, and we spend most of our time relentlessly talking to ourselves, often about ourselves, inside our heads. So, what's the solution? Well, fortunately, despite such a complex problem, the solution is simple. But simple doesn't necessarily mean easy. True freedom is achieved by actively training ourselves to reconnect with the base experience of each moment, rather than the concepts. Unfortunately though, many of us have spent our entire lives obsessively focusing on the stream of concepts which we call our thoughts. We then draw more and more conclusions about life as we get older, which can be extremely helpful, but can also massively restrict us. For example, if I had a bad experience with dogs as a child, I could conclude that all dogs are dangerous, and now I'm terrified to go near them, and I'm shut off to all the positive possibilities of having a dog because of my conclusion, not because of the experience. And so in short, to gain true freedom from these feelings of chronic stress, overwhelm, and anxiety, we need to live as much of our lives aligned with reality and not with our conceptual memory. And the vehicle for this is meditation. But before you start mentally closing off, this isn't what you think. Because we all have ideas of meditation as sitting cross-legged in some kind of trance-like state. However, this isn't what meditation really is. Meditation can be done sitting, standing, jumping, driving, or at work. It just doesn't matter. You also don't need to give up your goals, ambitions, desires, or current lifestyle, because it's not about being passive and running away from our responsibilities. It's quite the opposite. But unfortunately, meditation has been suffocated in our society, reduced to just being a tool for health perks, like a prescription drug with a catalogue of benefits. However, meditation is so much more. It's a vehicle to transform not just your experience of life, but allow you to make better decisions and get different outcomes within your life. Meditation is the only vehicle that allows us to wake up from the relentless, stressful dream that we call our lives. Because it's the practice of tuning in with experiencing reality as it is, rather than through our limited conceptual memory. Now, this channel's purpose is to share practical methods on how we can do this, and how we can thrive in a digitally suffocating world, aiming to dissolve stress and transform old behaviours into new ones. Whilst we will explore interesting ideas, we will always remain grounded in the central principle that concepts only get you so far. Experience is the key. Welcome to Conceptless.